Mother's Day this weekend? Is that this weekend?
No, next weekend.
Next weekend? See, I'm so bad at these things.
Josh, you thought you missed Mother's Day and nobody told you till Wednesday?
Is it last? No, I meant like it's the upcoming.
Oh, it's this Sunday.
It's this Sunday coming up. See, yeah, there we go. Lots of time. Figure stuff out.
Lots of time.
Panic. Josh has panic underneath. Hey, everyone joining in, we'll be starting in 1 more minute. Make sure you can hear us. Make sure you can see our beautiful faces. There's some background music happening. That is by design. That's not someone jumping in with a phone. It's better than elevator music, folks. So.
Hey, does everybody know that Ali used to be a DJ?
Yeah. I used to go to senior retirement home. No, I'm just kidding. So just 1 more minute, we'll get started. Okay, we got 24 people on, Josh. Why don't we get this party going?
Okay.
Okay, give me a second, folks. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
I can.
Yep.
Looks good.
Gonna make sure I move this somewhere else. All right. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, especially all the early birds who came 5 minutes early. Thank you so much. I am Ali, as you might know from last, and we have Josh. Josh, you want to say hey?
Good morning, good afternoon, all that fun stuff.
And good evening. I'm not sure if the person from Australia is here still today. And we have Shaylin. Where you at, Shaylin?
Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Right. Well, thank you, everyone. This is Sprint School Week 2. You passed the first step, so you guys are already pros at this. We're going to have another crazy, fun-filled, interactive webinar for you today. The next hour is going to go really fast. We have this amazing guest speaker, too. We'll try to ourselves to quickly go through a little bit of what we did last week, and then we'll jump into what we call is what's the plan for this today. Like we said, we super missed you a lot. Me and Josh were actually on this call for earlier than an hour before because we just couldn't wait to see all of you. And so before we begin, I wanted to just give you guys a quick housekeeping again for those who don't know. We will be recording this session. We are also going to make sure all the slide decks are uploaded on SlideShare, and we will share back the video recording and the slides to you guys after this webinar. So you don't have to take notes, and we just need your presence and your engagement during this. I want to again thank everyone for doing the homework we asked you for last time. Pretty much everyone was sharing on Twitter. We got a lot of private emails coming in of people sharing their problems. Some were crazy, some were intense, and some were just like, wow. Josh and I picked a couple just to, we found them quite interesting. And so the first we really found interesting was this one. Is the person who wrote this one, Too Many Pills, are they online? I would love to hear from them what this problem is about.
I'm going to take that a no. They're not online.
Are they?
I thought I seen their name, but that's okay.
Are they texting? Maybe in the text box they're texting.
That's okay, Ali.
Okay.
Oh, her mic is not. Oh, she's here. Her mic's not working.
Okay. No worries, Stacy. Well, we found this very interesting, so we would love to hear more about it in the future. You can put it on Twitter a little bit, some explanation about that. Why don't we go on the next problem that I'm quite curious about? And it's from George, and I know George's here. So, George, you want to tell us more about your problem?
Yeah, I can put on my video as well. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You betcha.
Yeah, so I just thought there was an opportunity because obviously there's been a lot of talk of the new cancer center, and we were talking before, I think, about especially in healthcare, kind of being more service provider oriented, and how this is a really sticky issue because you're dealing with unions, you're dealing with a bunch of stakeholders. And I just think, in terms of a cancer diagnosis, at that moment, people are kind of in shock, right? And it typically tends to be a family decision. I've actually faced this in my family, and I've just sort of seen how it really throws people for a loop, and they're not quite sure what's the right option, and they're dealing with doctors and nurses, and of course this huge shock of this big change to their life. And so what I was kind of curious about is how, or what might be an approach to making them kind of feel empowered, especially at a time when they're probably feeling very vulnerable, and giving them kind of tools and resources to navigate the system and understand kind of what are their rights, what are their options, what are the trade-offs, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. I love the word to use, empower, and you kind of did a one step ahead where you made it into a how might we your problem. So we'll be talking about how might we in today's webinar. So great. I love this problem. This is a great one. Another problem that we got via email, and we thought this was great, from Caitlin. Caitlin, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Tell me more about your amazing, fun problem.
So essentially, I work at a relatively large private hospital in Queensland, Australia, and most of our patients don't receive any documentation on discharge from the hospital, and that also includes their general practitioner, which means it's difficult in terms of continuity of care. They're not sort of getting that clinical handover to the GP. It's just not viewed as important by our doctors at the moment.
Perfect.
Everyone's probably feeling this, right, Josh?
Yeah, I experienced this one for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. So again, guys, thank you so much again for sharing your problems. All your homework that we give you every week, please share it on Twitter or send us an email. We tried our best to respond to them, like them, and make some comments. It is something that just a little baby step in trying to learn, as you go through our webinars and try it out. So what I'm going to do next is really jump into kind of a quick recap of what we did last week. And as you guys know, last week was intense. Twitter blew up for us because people loved Zaina, who was our guest speaker. She came and she really talked about that innovative mindset and really shifting the mindsets, what innovation is. And it's really about making something brand new or trying something, different. And improvement and core improvement, I loved her. She said was, you cannot quality improvement your way out of the bottom. And improvement to me was, what I heard from her was really taking an idea and making it better. And innovation is just breaking new ideas. Last week, we also touched a little bit about, how we need to, for innovation and to start thinking differently, we need unique mindsets. And so underneath sprints, our healthcare sprints and design thinking, there are these really important mindsets that we want everyone to always keep in their mind. So focus on human values, which is really about, having empathy for people and getting their feedback throughout the process. Embracing experimentation, that culture of prototyping. And it's not just about validating ideas, it's about having that learning mindset of trying things. Having that bias toward actions, it's really not about just doing, not about just talking and meeting, but actually doing and making. And we have one of my favorite mindsets is show, don't tell, which is really about bringing together different viewpoints. Sprints is all about, giving people the opportunity to share their stories and visualize and help illustrate ideas, and I'm just speaking about them. Radical collaboration, it's all about bringing in diverse viewpoints, and through that diversity, you create better solutions. And being mindful of the process, that mindset is really understanding that there are stages in the sprint, and each stage has a unique goal, and you have to just trust the process to let it go through it. The question I want to ask this group right now is, of these mindsets, which one do you think is missing in healthcare right now? Use a text box, a chat box to to type in your answer, or you can, we can open up your mic. Which one of these mindsets are missing in healthcare at this time? Type away in your chat box. Shailen, what are people typing in?
There's a few coming up here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
We have culture of prototyping from Alex, bias toward action from Aaron, bias towards action from Christy as well. It seems to be coming up a couple of times here, actually. And another popular one is radical collaboration. A lot of people are putting that in as well. Culture of prototyping. Sorry.
Now, I want to pick on Claire Ross for saying radical collaboration. Claire, why did you say radical collaboration? I'm curious. Can you speak up, Claire?
That's all right. She doesn't want to speak up. That's okay. Or is she having a problem with the mic? Ali, we'll just keep going.
I keep putting people on the spot. Oh my God, I'm so bad at this. Come on, folks, be ready because I'll pick on you again and again. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're really going to focus on that first initial step, which is, when you start a sprint, you have to have the right problem. And then the first stage of sprint is the first couple of hours when you are doing the sprint on day one, you're really deep, getting a better understanding of what that problem is. And so today is going to be all about that first two things, the problem and understanding. We're going to have Ariel coming up next, our amazing guest speaker. We're going to talk about today about how do you prepare and get everything ready for those 2 days. And then we'll go into a little bit about how might we and lightning talks, and which are the first two activities we do on day one of a sprint. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our amazing guest speaker. Her name is Ariel. She's all the way from Toronto, guys. She is the director of anthropology. I don't know what that means. It just sounds very fancy, but she's super smart and super interesting. I'm going to give it over to her. Again, welcome everyone. Hi, Ariel. Are you there?
Hi, guys. It's me, Ariel. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. And hello from Toronto. You actually caught me en route to Colombia for some cool design sprints related to human rights. So you're catching me right before the airport, which means you got me in my home instead of the office. So welcome to my home. My role at the Mars Solutions Lab is the Director of Design Anthropology. To give you a bit of background, the Mars Solutions Lab is a part of the Mars Discovery District, which is an urban innovation center based in Toronto, but is quite international in scope. And what Mars does is half of the organization is really focused on coaching and growing new companies in Canada. So it's a venture training model where we're helping both start, grow, and scale companies to try to be as competitive as possible in the markets that they're competing in. And so that in some ways is in order to fulfill a gap, much like in healthcare, of just general innovation training in Canada when we compare ourselves to the States. So we want the Canadian market to be as competitive as possible. The other side of what we do at the Mars Discovery District is all about systems design, actually, and enabling environments both in economics as well as policy change to make it easier for new innovations to actually stick in market, and also to identify new regulatory spaces that may be needed as we innovate into the future, right? And my team, the Solutions Lab, actually sits in the systems side. So most of the work that we do is convening multi-stakeholders, so government, private business, both corporate and startup, and civil society around some of the big sticky issues of our cities, like mobility, like healthcare, like the new digital layer of smart cities, trying to bring people together to use a design process that helps us not only to do things that are human-centered, but system-centered, right? So that's what we do. The Director of Design Anthropology is really most related to human-centered design. So my background is in user research and experience design. And design anthropology is kind of like human-centered design 2.0 in a lot of ways. How many people, have you guys already touched on human-centered design in the Sprint School? You have?
That's where we started.
Okay, amazing. So I don't need to cover it, but what you might notice as we go through problem framing today is that it's a very human-centered design approach, and it's amazing, and we should never stop doing that. But design anthropology seeks to broaden the scope of what we care about when we design for, to take a longer view and actually to balance human needs against the environment and against kind of more sustainable long-term issues that are oftentimes ignored in more traditional human-centered design. So that when we're creating things, we're not only creating things that are great for people, but that are also great for the environment and for the economy. So that's what I thought it would be worth a quick beat just to explain where I'm coming from. Do you guys have any questions before moving into the actual problem framing? No? Okay. So let's talk about problem framing. So problem framing is the first step of the understand process, and the first step in many ways of a typical innovation process. And the reason that we do problem framing is because our solutions that we design are only as good as the frame by which we developed them. So we have a saying that says, you live and you die by your problem frame, meaning if you do a great job of problem framing, you're most likely to have an excellent design solution. But if you don't take care with your framing, you may end up either designing for the wrong problem or designing for the wrong people. So how before I jump in, how many people have already attempted problem framing in the past? You can type in the chat box or unmute yourself and say me, but has anyone done problem framing before? George, Lial, so we have some people. Okay, great. I just wanted to.
We got some veterans.
Pardon?
We have some veterans here, I guess. Yep.
Yeah, it's great. So as I go through this, think about how it compares to your past problem framing experiences, and I'd love to kind of debrief after I present you this approach. So in this problem framing approach, what we have, I'll read it out to you. So the problem framing is the process of describing and interpreting a problem to arrive at a problem statement. It's considered an important step in problem solving, as slight changes in framing may lead to a vastly different problem solving process and resulting solutions. A well-framed problem may be easier to solve. So problem frames typically take a three-piece approach. So there's three building blocks to your problem frame: the how might we, and then followed by a description of some type of goal. Two, and then you describe a desired action or outcome related to that goal. And then a because, which is why it's important and how it's different. What's interesting is I often recommend that you start at the bottom of that frame with the because. So the why is it important, or how is what we're doing different? And in order to do that, we have to first empathize with the needs of the people that we hope to solve for. In innovation strategy, you'll often hear people talk about a business frame that gets set in tension with a user frame. So I'll give an example. In banking, the business frame of developing new banking solutions is that the business wants to make more money and make their products and services more financially sustainable. So the business goal of the bank is to create a product and service that is engaging for people, but not because they really care about the people, because they care about making sure that their business is sustaining financially. So it's a much more financially driven frame. That said, the goal that they have, which is making an engaging product or service for customers, is the same. It's just that the motivator is different, right? The user frame would be the people who are actually going to use that banking product and service. So people like you and I. And the reason that we want a banking product or service is because perhaps we don't have excellent financial management habits and we want a guide. Or maybe we just ran into a bunch of money and we need someone to help us store it and grow it and save it and take care of it for us. So we're bringing our motivators into the situation. And what's coalescing is that the business need, which is to make money and sustain the business, and the user need, which is to have someone help them, either store money, get advice, what have you, meets in the middle where that banking product or service lives. And so the things that we're designing, you can imagine them as the meeting point between 2 different or 3 different or 4 different people or organizations' needs.
Yeah, but I mean, there's lots of.
I'm just going to pause there. So a banking solution is really easy to explain because in consumer products that we're framing for the business and the consumer, it's a pretty easy 2-way street, right? When we look at more complex systems like healthcare, we have way more people at the table that we need to design for, which makes problem framing more difficult. So in a healthcare situation, we would have the person receiving the care, so the patient or kind of stakeholder. Then you would have the person providing the care, which would be any range of actors like hospitals, community health workers, universities, even if it's a more research approach. Then you have your support system, which would be family members who are helping the patient through their lived experience of receiving health attention. So that could be family, friends, anyone that's in the support network. And then the other or 4th user type would be support services. So not actually health services that people are receiving, but either community groups or other types of civil society organizations who might be attached to all of this delivery, or either helping the patient realize what services are available to them or handing off or giving advice. So we see we have this much more complex user system, right? We have up to 4 or more user types in the healthcare framing exercise. So what we would normally do is to start by not necessarily chatting with people themselves, but of course getting as smart as possible on the thing we think we want to solve. We would then, in the process of framing, actually go out and talk to all of those variety of end users. So the doctors, the patients, the family and friends, as well as the civil society organizations, and try to understand their perspectives and their lived experience around the issue area. So one of the issue areas that you guys brought up today was that how might we empower cancer patients and their families to fully understand and direct their treatment options? So if you think about that problem, you'd have all sorts of actors that we could go out and get some basic information just through really light interviews. In those interviews, you don't really have an end goal. You just have the fact that you're interested in solving that problem, and you're poking around and trying to understand what their lived experience and perspective is around it. What you can then do is, after chatting with all those people, go back and kind of describe what they told you. What is their environment? What are their constraints? What are their enablers? What are their motivators? And by describing each of them separately, you'll see where the commonalities are, but you'll also see what's in tension. And that will help you then compare those 4 lived experiences and revise your problem frame so that you're solving for something that meets all of those 4 users where they are and trying to bring their diverse needs together. So that's what we're going to try to do today. I think that it's best to try these things rather than talk about them to make them real. So I was going to just pick one of your problems, but maybe I can post all 4 of these in here and you guys can vote on the Slack channel, or sorry, the Zoom channel, which one you'd like to workshop. What we're going to do is we'll pick the frame, the problem that we're going to work with, And then we will split you guys up into groups, or you guys can just pick a user that you'll write a frame for. So you'll either write a frame for the patient, the doctor, the support system, so the family and friends, or civil society, so the community groups related. And we'll compare how you think their perspective is against that issue to try to revise into a more interesting problem frame. Does that make sense?
So Ariel, do you want them to just write in the chat box their perspective just because of the timing piece too?
Yeah, so I've numbered the problems that I've heard. So I'm just gonna post them in the Slack channel, and then read through those 4 problems, and in the chat box, just put the number, which number problem you guys want to workshop. How are we doing on time, Allie?
We're a little bit tight on time. Why don't we just pick the cancer one for now?
Sure.
Because I like that one.
Good.
And let's try that. Ariel, do you?
Yeah, for sure. So our problem is, how might we empower cancer patients and their families to fully understand and direct their treatment options? So then you guys get to pick if you will think about the patient, if you'll think about the doctor or caregiver perspective, or the family support perspective. We'll just do those 3. So everyone kind of think about which person you'd like to represent or empathize with inside of your own brain right now. So patient, doctor, or family, friends.
And Ariel, what are we supposed to write?
Yeah, I'm just letting people kind of think about who
Okay.
they want to think about first. And what you're going to do now is you're going to reflect in your own computer, and you can put it in the chat box. Put, like, if you're doing the patient, do number 1, and then just write what you think their biggest challenge, motivator, and enabler is here. So what is their biggest challenge, motivator, and enabler related to this problem, which is helping cancer patients and their families fully understand and direct their treatment options. So just put yourself in that person's perspective and reflect, what is their biggest challenge, motivator, and enabler? When you feel like you have an interesting idea, you can post it in the chat box. Mm-hmm.
I like Marley's one. It's true. So Ariel, we have 2 more minutes for this section.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that one. Biggest challenge is the emotional state of receiving a diagnosis and starting the care journey. That definitely hits home. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Not always kept in the loop on what would support their family member. So what we see coming out is that there's a tension here between the key motivators of the people involved in this problem frame, right? There's a deep emotional journey for the patient and the family member, a desire for information, a desire to be kept in the loop. But on the caregiver side, we have restraints in time, sharing capabilities. The need for privacy is held in tension, right? Being informed versus maintaining a patient's privacy at all times. So what we would then do is, given that really excellent start of the cancer problem frame, we'd go back up, and after having thought a bit more about the emotional, challenging aspects of this problem for each of the users and what's motivating to participate in the first place, if we can update the frame to be a bit more laser focused on where we can really make an impact. So how might we empower cancer patients and their families to fully understand and direct their treatment options? One of the things we might notice in here, by empathizing with the 3 user groups, is that we haven't mentioned the doctors in this problem frame. And my kind of last point, because I know we're over time, would be maybe take this problem away and think about how you can adapt it so that you're also representing the point of view of the doctor in here. So that when we move into designing, we're designing for the family, for the patient, and for the doctors as a unified user group. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ariel. I really appreciate you coming and taking the time, especially just before you were leaving what sounds like a fantastic trip. Hopefully you're going to be tweeting out about it, because I'd love to follow with the work that you're doing as you go down into Colombia. So thank you again. I really appreciate it. Definitely opened my mind to a little bit, that importance of the problem frame, and especially when you're moving into designing for your users and looking at all of your user groups. So thank you again so much. Round of applause. I see lots of thank yous coming into the chat box. So
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Before you go, does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? Or do they want to share a moment where they, their mind was blown? We try to have fun. I should have rocked the turtleneck too, though, honestly. I should have seen if I could find one just like that. All right. So, Ariel, if anyone does have any questions, could they hit you up on Twitter?
Sure, you bet. And I just want to say, keep going with what you guys are doing. I think it's a really great model, and I think you guys are making some great impact. So really support what you guys are trying to accomplish here. So best of luck.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
You bet.
All right. Okay, guys, we're going to start to jump into the rest of the day, a little bit more of the meat. And welcome back to the Healthcare Design Sprint, or the Health and Care Sprint. Like I said on day one, you guys are going to be seeing this graphic a lot, and it's really going to be the way that we kind of follow through the day. And like Ali mentioned at the very start, we're going to be talking about lightning talks, how might we's, and a little bit of that problem framing like we've already gone through. So, Ali, next slide. Next slide, as funny as that one is. We're going to make sure we meet up with our time. Oh, crap, I didn't prepare. I did. A little bit. If you follow us on Twitter, you would have seen the pictures of my hands and my face. But so today we're going to be talking a little bit about setting the stage, and the challenge. And you guys, we've already touched on that. So that's framing that problem, which is really important. And like Ariel already mentioned, that user research, taking the problem to them, talking to them about that problem, it's going to really help you make sure you have the right challenge in front of you and your team, because you can plan the best sprint in the world, have the best people there. If you come with the wrong how might we, or the wrong problem, or the wrong frame, you are going to develop a solution that isn't something that's needed by any of those user groups. One of the next pieces that we do while we're setting the stage is that team. So there's 3 really important people on the team: the decider, the facilitator, and the diverse team, or the sprint team. So the decider is somebody who has a lot of stake in the game. And it's not always necessarily a senior leader. It could be someone who's got money, it could be someone who is, the ultimate decision maker for what you may be developing or designing. Next is the facilitator. That it would be you or me or Ali. You have a really, really important role in the design sprint and this whole process, which we're going to be teaching you guys. And then the diverse team. Those are all those people that you invite to be part of your sprint team. And we will be talking about this, but it's really important that you pick people to be part of your team that are, not only passionate, but they have come from different backgrounds and different understandings. And I'm going to be talking about the importance of the team members when we get into the case study, the time and space. So like we said, 2 days to run the actual sprint, but we didn't really mention how long to plan one. And we like to give 6 weeks, especially in the healthcare setting. When we're asking people to block off 2 whole days in their calendar, it can become really, really difficult to get those days. And we find 6 weeks is a good time. And supplies, my very favorite thing is Post-it notes. I love Post-it notes. I literally have stacks just sitting around my desk. We use a lot of them, a lot of Sharpies, a lot of dots for voting, and paper for drawing, but you were wondering why, which we'll talk about, and taking notes. Next one, Allie. All right, so combating elderly loneliness in rural Alberta. Marliese is like, not plain yellow Post-it notes. There's no well, there's yellow on the bottom, but they're not the bland, like Staples generic Post-it notes. By the way, we are not sponsored by 3M or Post-it note brand. I just have to mention that really quickly before we keep going. So I'm going to talk about the problem framing that we did for combating elderly loneliness in rural Alberta. And you guys may remember, this is a sprint that I had ran a couple months ago, or a month ago now. And this was our initial problem. So no one is attending a seniors activity program at a long-term care facility in rural Alberta. It's a little generic, it's some, a lot of the problems people have, they actually come to us with, just like this. But, the reframing part of it is extremely important. So people are asking why I didn't get money for 3M. That is a great opportunity, but I'm pretty sure it's conflict of interest. That's okay. So we always like to reframe problems with this how might we, and turning them into opportunities. So when Ali and I started to plan for this virtual sprint school, our problem was online learning is boring AF, and if you know, as fudge. And I'm not saying that fudge is boring, but we really wanted to change that into an opportunity. So when we started to plan this day, we just threw a how might we out there. We said, we reframed it into how can we make virtual sprint school fun and engaging. Easier said than done, but the reframe was really, really important. So we're going to get into an activity really quick. And some of you guys are ringers, George, and you already started off your problems with how might we's. But I really want you guys to quickly take that problem that you brought to us and flip it a little bit on its head. And I want you to put a how might we in front of it and just change the language a little bit.
And type it up in the text box.
Type it in the text box. Thanks, Ali. So there's a reason we use HMW, or how might we. How, it's because it helps guide team members and believe that there's actually an answer to our problem. So, problem, world peace. And you're like, that's a big problem. But how might we? Gives us how might we solve world peace or create world peace? Lets us believe that there's an answer for it. But might is important. So let's team members know that the statement might or might not work. There's possibilities. And like we mentioned on day 1, that means it's okay to fail, right? It's okay not to have the right answer the very first time. And then my favorite part of that whole statement is we're doing this as a team, we're doing this together. That radical collaboration is really, really important. So I talked for a while to let people type out their problem in the chat box. How might we? Okay. Stacy, did you get your mic working?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
The mic was fine. I didn't realize I had to hit the unmute in Zoom. I was using my mic control.
That's okay. So tell me about your how might we?
What do you want me to tell you? I mean, for me, I work in post-surgical care, and you may have heard of this thing called an opioid crisis. And we are seeing what we can do to decrease our love affair, and I mean love affair, with opioids, but also providing excellent pain management to our patients through the use of evidence-informed skills like meditation, massage, acupuncture, Reiki, but also busting down the barriers to bring these into a hospital where, you know, complementary treatments aren't always welcomed in conventional healthcare, for lack of a better word.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy. Love it. It's really interesting. They actually teach those techniques in nursing, you know, when I did nursing. And then as soon as I got out of it, it was like, no, we're just going to give them drugs. So it'd be really great to kind of, how do we pull that holistic care back? Because, you know, at least when I came out of school, very quickly I was told, forget everything you've learned. And it's really unfortunate because we did learn some fantastic stuff. Ali, do you see another one in there that you like?
I love Lyle's one. Lyle, do you want to share yours?
Sure. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm just using a different machine today. Yeah, I'm trying to help a client who's in a quasi-health facility that's right now struggling with the amount of time that they're spending on, and dollars in their budget on just the, I'm going to call it the bureaucracy. I think I labeled it admin functions here in my note, but just trying to figure out how to get these people to think about working differently to reduce the time and reduce the spend on these like non-patient care functions.
We do that? We do that in healthcare, Lyle?
Just a tiny bit.
I love it. You had that. Just a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. Thanks, guys. It's really fantastic to see all of those how might we's up there. So now we're going to talk about some of the how might we's that we came up with, and what classifies as maybe a good how might we, and maybe a how might we that's just like a little, it's okay. Because we never say that they're bad. But we generate a lot of them. We generate a lot of how might we's, and we kind of encourage the team to just write things down. We're going to throw everything against the wall. We want to hear from everybody that's in the room, because you never know, they may have something that's like a little bit on that like one scale, and but it may trigger something in someone else. So during the sprint, you'll see we'll put these giant Post-it notes on the wall, and we'll throw everything up and so that it may trigger something in someone else. We may remember it later or use it later. So we have 3 examples here of 3 how might we's that actually came up during our elderly loneliness sprint. So, you know, this idea that's too broad is, how might we build our communities up? Okay, that sounds fantastic, but what does that really mean? It's so big. It's really not feasible, especially in this 2-day sprint that we're working on. Of course, we appreciate people taking part, still throw it up on the wall. And then, of course, there's things that are too narrow. People are like, I know exactly what we need to do. We need to open up happy hour and long-term care to all seniors in the area. So that starts to move into, that's more of an idea. Maybe it's an element of a solution, but it's super narrow. It focuses us way too much, and it doesn't allow for creativity in trying to come up with something new. Of course,
it's only a solution, right, Josh?
Yeah, it's a solution.
Oh, it's a solution, yeah.
But this one was interesting, this last one. So it's, how might we provide some incentive for people to take part in activities? So it's really around, how do we get seniors within this community to start to come together and incentivize it, make them want to be there. So it just kind of gets people thinking maybe from a different mindset. Maybe they start to think about, okay, how does a bank get us to come and use their things? How does, you know, a restaurant get us to all kind of come together? And it encourages that creative thinking and really thinking out, not only outside of the box, but looking at it from a different angle. So we use how might we's not just for problem statements, but also for note-taking during these. They're called lightning talks. So lightning talk is this 5 to 10 minute I don't want to call it a presentation because we usually don't encourage slides, but they come in and they're either an expert, they're someone that knows best practice, but you didn't think that they needed to be a part of the sprint team, but you wanted them to share their experience. Could be around user research. Another great one is actually patience. You get them to come in and provide them an opportunity to share that understanding or that their lived experience with the entire sprint team. It's really, really valuable for the rest of the team to kind of hear what's going on. So there was a team that was planning a sprint around workplace culture. And my first idea was like, oh my goodness, we need to call somebody from Disney to see if they can do a lightning talk for us to share about how do they implement culture in such a large organization and have it really touch on all of the people. Ali, we did this sprint in Norwood around chronic ventilation and patients. We asked 2 patients to call in so that they could share their lived experience with being on a chronic vent unit. And next slide, Ali. That's okay. So sometimes during a sprint, it looks like this, and there is a slide deck, but there's somebody who calls in and they're going to share their experience. So for the seniors loneliness sprint that we did up in Fairview, Alberta, we had 2 people call in. We had a physician, geriatrician, Colin, who is he's an expert in elderly loneliness, and he's extremely passionate. So it's like, okay, you cannot come to the sprint, but I definitely need you to share what you know with this group. And then we also had someone come in from the community to talk about local community supports and what AAHS is doing to kind of make connections. During this time, everybody's writing notes. And we use how might we's to frame these notes as people are going. So that giant list that you're seeing, they're not just problem statements, they're these how might we's that people are generating while they're listening to speakers. So do that for 2 reasons. One, it keeps the notes really concise because we give you only a Post-it note and a Sharpie. So you have to kind of drill down to the heart of what you're thinking. And then 2, it kind of puts everybody on the same playing field. Everybody's working within this idea of how might we. So it's a lot of it's positive. It's really forward thinking and it's creative. And then we throw it all up on the wall. And it lets people, feed off of the energy and the curiosity that's in the room, because that's really important for the sprint. We want to stay curious. We want to keep our mind open. So we're still in like this diverged stage. Like we're thinking outwards and around what other groups are doing. So, Ali, you want to take this next one?
Sure. So we're almost at the end. The key takeaways for today is just basically, healthcare sprints require that prep work. So getting 6 feet out, booking those 2 days, making sure you have the right problem, making sure you have the right team, getting all the supplies and everything ready. How might we is used to capture notes, ideas and problems, but reframe it in opportunities. Lightning talks are a way, one activity we do in the beginning of the sprint day 1, so that we hear different perspectives and we understand the problem from multiple kind of experts. What we want to do now is we're going to do a little breakout activity. We're going to get you guys into your individual rooms, into kind of breakout rooms. And we want you to basically reflect and talk with among yourselves about what was the biggest aha for you today. We'll give you guys about 5 minutes to do that. So we're going to put you in rooms and we'll bring you back into the main room. So talk to each other about what was your biggest aha for today. And I'm going to put you guys into the room right away.
So see join show up on your front of your screen. Just click that.
Hey guys, is this another room for us?
Hey guys, so at the bottom of your screen, you might have a new option that says breakout rooms. And if you click on that, you should be able to see the button where it says join.
Hey Claire and Jake, are you guys in a breakout room? Can you guys hear me? Shay, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
Okay. Because I only see Jake and Claire not in a breakout room. Just
Yeah, same. So I don't know.
hey Lyle, were you in a breakout room?
I was, and we killed it, so we just came back.
You guys are awesome.
We fucking rocked it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get people coming in about give another minute. You guys are too much keeners for me. I like the goatee, Lyle. I'm not gonna lie. I like the goatee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I started growing it on a little holiday with my family, and my daughter was like petting it because Daddy was too lazy to shave. And she said, "Can you keep the hair on your face, Dad?" And so I've decided to try it out. First time ever in my life. No idea what I'm doing. So if you have any tips, please send them along.
Fair enough. Okay. I do the beard thing, so I don't know. I just have a beard thing. It's the lazy one, so. Okay, I'm gonna start. Okay, we're gonna slowly get people back from their breakout rooms. I know some of people love to talk and some people are executioners. They like to just get through the material and the task. So just another 30 seconds and everyone should be back in the room. Welcome back, everyone. Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
That was flawless. I can hear you, Ali.
It was too short, I think, for some people, but some people just literally came back within 2 minutes saying, we're done. I'm gonna ask the group to, what did people talk about? What was the big aha? Does someone want to share their ahas with us?
Well, Ali, I'm going to jump on because I want to prove to you that we actually were doing the work at hand.
Go ahead, Lyle.
I had two amazing participants who I forget their names, which is terrible. Please right on the chat if you were in my group. But all three of us had similar ahas. We really enjoyed the chat with Ariel and how she broke down the concept of looking at problems through different frames. And we talked a lot about, yes, thanks, Alex. Oh, Alex was in my group. She was awesome. We talked a lot about how people always forget about the different challenges and motivators and enablers when you look at it from different perspectives. And we liked the concept of looking at those three discrete entities to help you really get connected to that perspective to then re-examine your how might we frame, and thought it was a really great intro. So
Thanks, Lyle. I see Linda French. You guys want to share yours? What was your aha on your team?
We were focusing really in that whole concept of reframing a problem to an opportunity. And we were actually working through a real life example and found it very exciting.
Awesome. Anyone else want to share their aha that they talked about in their breakout rooms?
Come on, George.
Well, one thing we mentioned was I really liked Ariel's reframe around like incorporating doctors into the discussion, like that in terms of the how might we relate it to cancer. Obviously, they're a huge stakeholder, and so framing it like I did originally from the patient and their family's point of view, left out a key stakeholder. So that ability to iterate back on your how might we statement and the importance of how that frames the rest of it. I think that's something she really emphasized, is how important that how might we and the problem statement is, or the problem frame is, in directing the conversation. So it's probably one of those areas where spending a lot of time getting it right will yield to a lot better results downstream.
Thank you.
Thanks, George. Sorry for the pressure.
No, it's all right.
So folks, we're gonna talk about the activity for this week that you have in your workbook, and this workbook today activity, I gotta pull it up. I don't think I have a slide on it, but that Josh, do you know the activity for the week? I gotta pull up the slide deck on this one. Let me just do that.
I made a slide. You lost it. I'm just kidding.
I lost the slide. Okay.
That's all right. So the week 2 now is really around understanding your problem. So we want you guys to kind of reframe your problem like you did before. Talk a little bit about why this challenge is important. Who does it impact? It's that same thing that Ariel was talking about. Why should we do this? As well as we want you to kind of think about what research or resources maybe that you have, or maybe it's thing that what do you really, really want? And then as well as we want you guys to identify what are your user groups. So like George said, who are all of the people that are going to be impacted by your solution?
Awesome. So like we said, fill it out, put it on Twitter, take a picture. We'd love to see that, or direct messages if you can use social media, but I would really encourage you to put the hashtag on, take a picture. It's another step to deep diving in your problem. As we said, we'll be back here next week. We have another guest speaker. His name is Andrew Su. He's going to talk about journey mapping. We're going to slowly go more into the day 1 of the sprint, which we talk about picking a target. So really looking at, what part of the sprint can we really, of your problem actually, what part of your problem are we going to focus on and try to solve? And then we'll talk a little about goal setting. So that's all for today, folks. We really tried to stay on time. I hope this was a good day for you, good 1 hour for you.
So like Ali and I have said, make sure you guys are really hitting us up on Twitter. We love seeing your guys' responses. It's fantastic. So, hey, I just met you, but call me maybe. Fire us an email if you want. Maybe you're not big into the social media. So we wanted to make sure you guys had an opportunity for that. So tag us on Twitter, hit us in the DM box, send us those emails. Thank you guys so much. Parting is such sweet sorrow. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys next week. Have a fantastic week, and we can't wait to see you on Wednesday. Cheers, everybody.
Do the royal wave. You do the royal wave.
I love it. Katie, she's fired up. Fired up.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.